Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Chrissy, and just a quick shout out to the work that David talked about, Orion. That's fantastic. In terms of the presentation, it's a busy time for us here at Bellevue at the moment, obviously with our dual track pathway into production and exploration. So this conference is sort of clashing with the Beaver Creek conference. So Steve and I were up basically all last night. So he mentioned that I'd be doing this yesterday afternoon. So being the 51st, I guess, presentation, I think that I'll probably change tack a bit and talk to a topic that David just touched on, which was ESG. I'll give a bit of a brief on the project, but we've got Craig Jones in the audience. Jonesy, where are you, mate? Yeah, he's over there, our Chief Operating Officer. So if I miss anything in the next 10 minutes, just please come up and have a chat to us afterwards. But to walk through a couple of disclaimer and cautionary statements. If we look at, for the people in the audience that aren't familiar with where Bellevue is, you've probably got two parts of Western Australia where you'd like to be at the moment. That's obviously the Kalgoorlie district or the Northern Wiluna Belt. And the position that we're positioned at the moment in terms of where we are at the Northern Wiluna Belt, we're pretty much in the middle of a 40 million ounce endowment. It's a fantastic camp. You can pretty much I can leave home at 5:30 in the morning and be boots on ground at roughly sort of 8 a.m. So with regards to where the world sits at the moment in terms of dealing with COVID, we're in a brilliant position. To look at this image before we start working through the video, and I'll just see if my pointer works. Sorry, Chrissy, I nearly got you there with that. But you can see the Goldfields Highway actually that travels up to really effectively running north-south down the property. I'll spin through in a moment, but if you were to come further down that highway, 30 kilometres to the south to orientate you, you've got the Agnew Gold Mine, you've got Jundee to the north, you've got Thunderbox, you've got Gwalia, you've got a host of 5 to 6 million ounce deposits, and effectively what you've seen here at Bellevue is no modern day exploration in the last 30 years, and the predominant reason for that, if you actually look on the right hand side of this image, and we'll see it as we go through, but you've got the Cosmos nickel mine. So Kerry Harmanis made that famous obviously with the Cosmos discovery. Bellevue itself is a typical Western Australian Archean lode gold deposit. At that point in time, Cosmos was being dewatered and effectively into the Bellevue underground. So that really probably delineates the difference between what you've seen in the district and Bellevue. You just haven't seen any modern day exploration. So it's a credit to Steve Parsons and Sam Brooks, the head of exploration, with the work the guys have done. So I'll give a quick little spin through on this video as we come up the belt. Hashtag believe, I'll talk about our core values. David mentioned that in the previous speech, and it's really important, something we hold dear to our hearts here at Bellevue. As we come up from the south, as I mentioned, Agnew to the north, to the south, you've got a 40 million ounce endowment in the camp. You can see Cosmos sitting over the back here. Now, the Bellevue workings pretty much run through here. You've had 800,000 ounces mined, historically at 15 grams per tonne. Since the start of actually first quarter 2018, you've seen roughly us add 75,000 ounces a month over the last 24 months and averaging really a discovery cost of $18 an ounce. GBF McMahon was up on site last Wednesday. They're doing a fantastic job as the contractor to our stage one workings. Doing a brilliant job, obviously, with what we're doing effectively on site at the moment is the Paris portal. The previous entry to the portal was down, and we'll spin down there in a moment, to the southern end. At the northern end, we're putting in 130 metres of fresh development, around 90 metres through that at the moment. That development started 3 weeks ago. We will be breaking through to that underground in the next couple of weeks. You can see the competency here of the existing decline. We've got 28 kilometres of underground workings at site. From a geotechnical point of view, you're talking basalts, dolerites and basalts. You're in fantastic ground, and which will support a typical ground support regime, which obviously you're looking with 28 kilometres of underground development, a head starting capital of around sort of $200 million. So from the point of view of opening up this deposit to further works, you'll see a very low level of capital intensity with regards to our drilling and also first ore. So that $135 million that we recently raised will certainly be put to work in the next 18 to 24 months. The fact that we are underground, and you'll see this in a moment, allows us to drill in every orientation. So we plan to be drilling from underground in the fourth quarter of this year. As we see the ore body here, you can see the Tribune lode that sits out really in the hanging wall of the deposit. The 2.3 million ounces sit in that envelope. They sit within a 2 kilometre envelope. You can see there the recent work that we've been doing. You'll see a further update. In blue's the maiden indicated resource, in yellow's the inferred material. Expect to see further conversion this year. And if we look at the moment here, what we've identified in the deposit really is a high-grade core of around 1 million tonnes at 480,000 ounces running 15.5 grams. You've effectively got one gold mine in Australia running a higher head grade at the moment, and that's Fosterville. So we're in a brilliant position. You can see the drilling there as we just come off that image from underground. The fact that we're underground allows us to drill in every orientation. For us to be drilling from underground, if you start looking at the economics of it, for us to drill a hole from Deakin from surface, you're talking really an 800 metre hole. It costs us $160,000 to do it. The fact that when we'll be underground drilling, we'll be drilling really 300 metre holes. Our collar lengths will be 50% closer to the ore body. We can drill that hole in 3 days, not 12, and effectively for a cost of $30,000. So we're pretty excited by the thought of being drilling from underground. Apologies if this sounds like a horse race, but I do understand I'm sitting between everyone and a beer. To look at, I think Chrissy touched on it, ESG and why does it matter? Well, it's a huge topic. In my previous role at Northern Star, it was something that over the last 4 to 5 years, it's been a parabolic shift to a buzzword, to something that I think we all know with recent events, it's certainly something that's important. It's obviously looking at environmental, social and corporate governance and being good corporate citizens. And it's not just mining companies, it's every company. It's finance companies, every stock that's really listed in the ASX 300 really comes under a larger level of scrutiny. So you might ask, why does it matter? Well, it matters because if we look at the Australian investment community, there's around $1.3 trillion of assets under management. 47% of those funds are $622 billion. I think you'll hear from Sam in a moment, and he'll touch on the filters, I'm guessing, that he might apply to his portfolio. But if you literally don't pass that first ESG tick, well, your stock's uninvestable. So in short, ESG is mainstream and it's set to grow. So what does that mean for Bellevue? Well, it's an interesting concept for Bellevue, because if you look at, I guess, the average age of our employees, you're looking at a 38-year-old employee. That's the typical average age of people in our business. And my opinion of this asset will be mined over the next 10 to 15 years. Well, they're the people who actually be mining it, and ESG does matter. You need, one, a social licence to operate, but you need the buy-in from your employees too. And probably one of the big things that we did earlier this year was define our core values. I think I can see Liza Carpini there. Liza had a lot to do with the Northern Star core values, and that worked fantastically well. Culture's so important, and it's something that we're really looking to grab a hold of at Bellevue, and these aren't words that are driven top down. These words need to come from your staff and they need to come bottom up. So one of the things that we did in February this year was do a staff survey of things that people found important to them, their values, and what it meant to work at Bellevue. And it's really how we generated our PACE core values, passion. I think the industry wants to believe again, and employees want to believe in what you're doing. It's that common bond that creates a lot of enjoyment. And you'll notice in the bottom corner of our presentations, you'll see the hashtag believe, because you need to believe in what you're doing. Life's too short not to. So I'll sort of touch on that in a couple of slides, keeping it quick. But to look at the sea, and David's brilliant work with Orion that you touched on. Obviously, Bellevue's an explorer. We're not in production, so we need to make sure that our spend does make a difference. Our mandate from our shareholders is obviously to be good corporate citizens. We believe in the concept of shared value, but we need to make sure we're drilling. But that's balanced with the work you're doing in the communities that you operate in. So we're pretty proud about the sea, which is obviously the pace and trying to really align the investment that we make into the community with our PACE core values. I need to come back there because a couple of the fantastic things that we've done over the last 12 months, it really sort of feeds directly into PACE, is looking at the Leonora High School Meals for Students program, because what we found from feedback from the local community, and in particular the local Leonora police, were basically saying kids weren't turning up to school because they weren't getting fed. So we thought, how good would it be to actually put some meals in kids' stomachs? You tend to concentrate when you've got some food in your belly. So that's one of the things that we've done. It aligns directly with our PACE core values. It's teaching passion, accountability, community, and excellence. It's breeding that. So we're pretty proud of what we're doing there. Expect to see some more work for us. You'll see a maiden sustainability report out from Bellevue in the coming month, which is an inaugural one, and we'll look to build on that pathway to production as we've moved really from exploration phase into development. To look at ESG, I won't touch on this for too much. I'd imagine Sam Ulrich might have spoken to this earlier today, but it's a really important slide because it's really the next step of what ESG is. They're not just buzzwords. You can't just greenwash the market. You need to show it in actions. You need to be able to walk your talk when it comes to ESG. So some of the brilliant work that Sam's done in terms of highlighting relationships between grade and lower costs, there is a relationship. And in terms of greenhouse gas emissions intensity, the brilliance of ESG is if you manage to optimise your operations, you're going to do two things. One, you're going to be a good corporate citizen, but two, the other thing that you're doing is effectively lowering your cost base if you actually look at it. And I'll give some highlights. Entech are doing some brilliant work with Craig and the team, and energetics for that matter, with regards to our push to be best-in-class corporate citizens on the pathway to production. We're literally reviewing every one of these options. If you looked at, obviously, your emissions as a business, you want to try and optimise them. What you'll find at Bellevue, the asset will have effectively a 3G, a full fibre optic network through the mine itself, and you might ask why. It means things like vent, for example, might be 30% of your power draw. If we can limit that to on-demand vent, effectively smart blasting techniques, power mix as well, whether we go off the current grid, look to spare off the Dampier to Bunbury gas pipeline, or use some form of renewables, all these things are being reviewed in the business, which is something we're really excited about. And I guess it comes down to exploiting your competitive advantages as a business. We're obviously looking to try and leverage grade, scale, continuing to growth with a very low level of capital intensity, and obviously with that recent equity raise, we're well funded to do it on that pathway into production. So I expect to see some exploration results from us in the not too near distant future, and probably a bit of a project update over the next coming weeks, an update to an indicated resource over the coming months, and also obviously a feasibility study out to the late, most likely early next year, just depending on where that information falls. But Chrissy, that's about it. I know it might have sounded like a horse race, I do apologise, but hopefully it wasn't too bad.